All right, Eric. So we have two more races to go before the end of the 2022 season, the next gen car and all that other jazz. Martinsville coming up on Sunday, and then it's off to Phoenix, where you're going to be. So you're going to be
Yep.
there all weekend. You're going to watch
Yep.
the Xfinity Championship race too?
Oh yeah, yep. I'll be covering that too. So yeah, this year's a little different. I noticed. I was looking at the schedule. I fly out Saturday morning, but get the truck race It's championship 4, similar format. Guess what time that started?
The truck race
Yeah,
on Friday night?
race. Friday night,
Eastern time?
Eastern time.
Well, it should start, you would think, at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock. Why?
You'd think 10.
10 o'clock start.
Coverage starts. So usually
Coverage starts. What is that about?
So I don't know. So I'm assuming that thing's not going green till.
It's got to be some
10:30?
other. Maybe there's a football game on.
Yeah, I need to look at what college, because I'm assuming FS1.
FS1 has college football, yeah.
So
it has to be.
Yeah, a championship race to where most of your fan base is.
Well, that's how they look at it. That's a truck race.
Yeah, that would be If you're waiting on the edge of your seat like me, I literally fly. My flight leaves Indy at 5:30 Saturday morning. So, needless to say, I don't know if there'll be much truck coverage for me on a championship race. So, Xfinity, yes, they moved that up. Last year was, I don't think it started to like 6 out there. This year's 3 Eastern, so it's gonna be a day race.
What about the Cup race? When is they going to start?
3 Eastern.
Oh, that's okay.
Yeah, which is 1, I think. The daylight clock alert. It changes next weekend.
It does back. Next weekend.
Yep, we fall back. So I think
this weekend or next weekend?
Next.
Oh, so the first Saturday of November.
Yep.
The day before the race.
Exactly. So we're all going to change. So that's why I think they're 3 hours behind. I think going on the Saturday, and then we sleep and wake up, and then they'll be 2 hours behind. So Eastern time zone, 3 o'clock. Just remember that. But yeah.
We asked the viewers to give us a nickname for a playoff driver who has been eliminated. We haven't gotten that yet. So we're going to have to keep working on that. We'll have the whole off season to work on it. But we do have some questions that we haven't gotten to over the last few weeks. Daniel Brown wanted to know whether or not you think that they're going to change up the playoff, what he calls shit show that they have created.
I think they need to.
Is it a shit show, the playoff?
I think parody's been great.
Yeah.
I think the storylines are. It's like, I don't think we focus that there's actually a playoff going on. I think that is a problem between the penalties. This is the first week I wrote this, and I'm glad to report on Tuesday. There are no penalties from last weekend. We've had no drama. We could focus on the on-track stuff.
That's true.
So we haven't had that yet. I think that's why I agree that it's been kind of a shit show. We have not focused on the parody, the drama. We've got 3 drivers within 11 points on Saturday going for a championship 4 spot, and we've had some good scenarios for the playoffs. We just haven't focused on it. So
it depends on what exactly Daniel thinks is specifically the shit part of the show.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of things that we can get into, but I mean, even last week, we said, look, we don't know what's going to happen. There's no racing at Homestead with the new car, so we had no idea. Another bad one. I mean, could have been the worst. Could have actually been the worst because
did you see the stat on Twitter today? If you didn't have cautions, which there really was only a couple start of the stage break, that Kyle Larson would have won by 2.5 miles over second place.
Ridiculous.
That's how good he was. Yeah. It's like, it made me realize that, because the question going in was, we don't know what we're going to get. Is the next one going to help the show or hurt the show? I think it hurt it a little bit. Homestead moving back to the championship race. Well, I don't think that was.
Imagine that. Imagine if that was the championship race with this car.
Yeah, and I don't know if Phoenix, we'll see, will be much better because the short track package. We'll get a preview.
But we had Phoenix and it was okay. It wasn't like this.
No, definitely not. It's the short track package is last this year, so I'd be curious. This weekend's going to be a preview, and Martinsville was terrible back in the spring. So does it help?
At least there was a big difference, though, with being a night race. It was cold.
Yep.
So there could be a lot of different – it could be different bad or it could be different good, even though there were only, 4 liters?
I think so.
4
Not
liters
many.
the first time.
Yeah.
So I can't imagine it'd be much worse.
No, I think Elliott – I don't think I know. I looked. He led the entire
early part.
Stage. Yeah. I mean, we got to the second stage and nobody else led a lap.
Yeah.
And the only reason I think – I don't think we had an on-track pass for the lead. Byron got the lead because Elliott had a pit penalty. And I think the only other 2 instances were just pit sequences. But, you can't get much worse, but you hope it gets better because this is a championship 4 deciding race.
Yep.
So but yeah, like you said, it was under night. I'm curious. I looked at the weather. I looked yesterday. I haven't looked today. There's a chance of rain in Martinsville. The race starts at 2, so in theory, you could probably get it done in daylight. But if we get a rain delay, nighttime conditions, cooler temps at night, does that stink the show up at the end?
Yeah, that could.
We'll see. The weather's one of the things I'm watching this weekend.
Triton Transport, I guess that's the name of this. He's taking that handle. Let's see. Was this from our response from last week? Let's see. Having a different unexpected winner is what makes better racing. Okay, so no. All that proves is that NASCAR has the cars all the same, even down to what brands of parts they can or can't use, and is turning NASCAR into IROC, which was boring as well, and they're now defunct. I'd rather see the best teams and drivers winning 10 or 12 races a year rather than this. About the only difference between 2022 NASCAR and IROC is that the teams have to spend the money to build the cars instead of the sanctioning body. So there you go.
Yeah.
To each his own.
Yeah. So there's going to be 2 sides, but it's not fully IROC. I mean, I get what he's saying.
I don't have any idea. What is that about?
It was like an all-star series where they had the same cars and
boring.
Yeah, I didn't think it was that.
Was it all the same drivers winning though?
No, I mean you have IndyCar guys, sprint car guys, Cup guys, Xfinity, all in one series, like a 12-car all-star race. And I get what he's saying because it was the same car. It was kind of like the SRX, how we see on Saturday nights, how they have the same car, similar to that.
But at least it's a limited amount of cars, so of course there was only.
That's what this was, and it was the best of the best. It wasn't like the SRX would get older, washed-up guys versus current guys. This is all current guys, big name, like Dale Earnhardt ran it, Mark Martin, Gordon. Ari Lindau, like big name guys, Al Unser Jr., in their heyday. And I get what he's saying, but it's not, I don't feel like it's that way because, yes, they are stock parts, but this is also called, in the past, they want to live as they used to call them stock cars for a reason. That's what we have. It's the teams, let's be honest too, the big teams still spend the most money. They just repurpose it elsewhere.
Sure.
So
you can buy better crew chiefs, buy better overall pit stop crew members and all that other stuff. You can spend
and people like parity? How do you think the NFL grew so big?
Yep.
Nobody's going to watch the same teams one over and over. And granted, in the end of the Super Bowl, was your better teams usually won, but their regular season and even in the playoffs to get to the Super Bowl was still a lot of parity.
Sure.
I mean, people aren't going to watch if your team's going to be 2-14 for 2-15 now for 5 straight years. You just alienated the fan base, so it's different. It's not the same. I don't think it's the best.
Tammy, I think it's Usabelli. Let's see, we understand where it's going, but don't really like it. You're right, it's more commercial, and the cars should be so the teams that don't have a lot of money can be competitive. So I guess I'm in the middle. She's 62. But doesn't mean it's good. I wonder what Earnhardt would have thought of if he was my driver. Earnhardt. I guess that's Earnhardt Sr.
Yeah. I mean, I don't.
What would he have thought about the next gen car?
I think he would have questioned the safety, like these other guys.
Oh yeah, of course, yes.
I think he would have liked it in a sense. He was also a team owner in the end of his year with Junior Motorsports was DEI. Junior Motorsports could have been DEI, but DEI was a team. So, yes, I get it, but I think he also sees the value if you look at, again, the grand scheme of things. Earnhardt was a huge sell on Monday type deal. Perform on Sunday, sell on Monday. or win on Sunday, sell on Monday is what it was. But him and Gordon commercially were Pepsi, Coke, Kellogg's, was it Post? Like they're the different brands. So he understood the value of that. I think he would have liked it just because he knows it would have made more money out of it.
All right, so that's our viewer questions segment of the week, even though we haven't had it in a few weeks. But let's move on over. Let's just recap quickly last week because, once again, fantasy-wise, you dominated. So you've stretched out your lead now at the right time with only 2 races to go. But again, it's not over because of how many you still got 800 points.
It's still a lot of bonus points still there.
For the first race and the second. Well, again, the second, that's how you hit big last week because you had 1,280 points just on the finishing first and second with Larson and Chastain. But keeping in mind that once we get to the championship race, that is 1,600 for first place. So you just got to hang around really into the last race and then have a good race. And now, of course, you want to have at least 1 or 2 of those championship drivers based on the system.
Yeah, that helps. I think that's helped my team is the Larson still, and it gets. Actually, I pull my team up here. It gets.
You could still have 3 of those drivers: Chastain, Hamlin, and Logano. Yeah,
and I also have Larson, who's in the Owners' Championship, which confuses the stuff, but he's still going for a title. So yeah, in theory, I could have Logano's in, Larson's in, so 2. Yeah, I could have 4 of my 7. I mean,
Larson and the Owners, you mean?
Yeah, because they're still going to. That actually pays the money. That pays the bills. Okay. If you ask a team which one would you rather win, they choose the Owners because that's where all the money's at. That's where the bonus is there. That's where the piece of the pie, they talk about, that gets divvied out.
I mean, if it's so important to them, then why don't they try to make it some part of the racing? Why don't they?
They need to do a better job of marketing it and making it known.
I mean,
nobody knows.
Who cares?
Yeah.
Unless they market it properly.
Yeah, because then you find out, there's more value here. This actually means more if Larson for that team, because this would technically be their second straight because they won it last year with them winning the championship. They win again. That's why that rallying cry from the team went last weekend to win that race is because now they're in, and this is a huge monetary bonus.
We've talked about ways that you can crank up the drama, especially like in the final race of the season. Like, how can you get the drivers to want to win the race if you're not in the top 4? Here it is. How do you not use that as a means to pump that up? So then there is more. So now you have, who knows? I don't know how many drivers are normally in contention for the Owners' points. How many drivers usually?
It's the same. They run the same format.
But I mean, how many, how close are the Owners' points championship wise to, how does that work compared to a driver championship?
Usually until now, it's usually just mirrors because it's usually the car. So what it is think of, we'll use Larson as an example, the 5 car. He's driving it. That driver gets points and the car gets points. If the driver drives the car all season, they get the points. Then you look at Bubba Wallace, Ty Gibbs, Kurt Busch, that whole situation. Kurt's out, so he takes that. He took the playoff spot. You're like, I'm not going for the driver's championship. I'm out. That car, though,
same points.
Won a race.
Yeah.
It still gets the points no matter Kurt's driving it, Gibbs is driving it.
Well, what's the standings right now?
It's similar. Minus the only difference is Blaney's not in it because he didn't make the playoffs on the owner's side because I think he didn't win a race. We had 16 winners. So the Owners.
Does the driver of the owner need to win? That's how it works, or is it just one of the?
Just the car.
Just
the car is tied to the owner. Yeah.
So they're not accumulating. Like Penske's not taking all 3 of his drivers.
They could.
They could.
Think of the car as just like a. Think of the car as a franchise of like a sports team.
Yeah.
That's the value, like the chart. That's how they're getting to, and then. I guess in theory you could have multiple owners of multiple teams, I guess.
Well, I mean, but to me, saying Blaney's out of the owner's race, it sounds confusing to me because isn't he still trying to accumulate points for his owner?
For the driver. He's in the driver's team.
Oh, so there's owner, and owner driver?
Correct.
So we have two other championships.
Just technically just owner and just driver. But Blaney, so that car is 17th in owner's points because he didn't make the playoff. So
how does that happen?
Because he didn't win.
Oh, so the owners make it more important to win than the drivers.
Well, it's the same theory. It's just think of what complicated it is. Think of Kurt Busch. Let's just say Kurt Busch ran the playoffs. Blaney would not be in the playoffs.
Say that again.
If Kurt Busch decided that I'm going to race in the playoffs or I'm going to keep my spot in the playoffs,
yes,
Blaney would not be in the playoffs because
that's
driver.
Oh, okay, all right.
But because Kurt stepped out, driver's side,
right.
But 2311.
I forgot all about that. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the 2311 was smart. Like, well, we can still get the owners. And it worked for him because the 45 car is 13th in points. He would have done no better than 17th. So they tier it. So like 16th, let's just say gets $1 million. 15th gets $2 million. 14th gets, so you get a large monetary bonus for each spot you move up in.
Okay.
So that's why it's big, and that's why Larson mentioned last week. I feel sorry for Blaney's team that he's still racing here, but that if he wins the championship, that car is going to get far less money than it would if he also won the owners. Where Larson winning the owners is going to win far more money. It doesn't matter Blaney. Let's just say Joey Logano wins the drivers' championship, but let's say he finishes second in the race and Larson wins the race and the championship. The 5 car is going to get way more money than the person that wins the driver's championship.
So why don't they, though, make it more like, okay, I'm the owner of Cindric, Logano, and Blaney, so I get accumulation of the points for because this other thing you're talking about, this driver owner thing, to me really sounds stupid. So why don't they just accumulate the 3 drivers? It's the same owner, and then if Logano has 100 points and Cindric has 50 and Blaney has 30, you add them all up, and that's how much the owner gets for the race. Why can't they just do that?
It would make sense, or I would like to make it like Formula One does this. They call it the constructors, which again is a more bigger deal to them than the drivers, but they each have 2 cars per team, so you just take the accumulation.
Yeah,
that's the point.
Okay.
To me, in NASCAR,
because why? There's different numbers of drivers for each owner.
They're only allowed 2 cars. Like Ferrari's got 2, Red Bull's got 2,
sure,
Mercedes has 2.
But obviously NASCAR, in Cup, that's different. Yeah.
But why can't you just use 2?
Exactly.
Most
you pick 2. Pick the top 2,
or
whichever 2 finish first, second. Those are your top 2.
Your top 2 finishers.
Yeah.
Those are your point goals.
Why don't they do that?
Honestly, I would rather see him just outlaw.
I know.
The car, and I get it. This is because you say that, and this year's a weird circumstance where Kurt Busch is out. Yeah, because in the past, let's be honest, right? Not many people are missing races, so it's the same, right? Because I think in theory
that's true.
But this is a rare circumstance. I feel because
we were doing the fantasy stuff a couple of years ago, and I've implemented that rule about if a driver isn't available, kind of thing.
Yep.
And at the time, it was like, yeah, but that doesn't happen. I mean, maybe one driver will get sick one race during the year. Now, I mean, this year it's like this driver can't make it, that guy's suspended, this guy's hurt. It's like, geez, I mean, you have so many options where now we have to start thinking about maybe adjusting the rule a little bit.
It is, and that's the reason why the 45 team and the whole start of the playoffs, like, I don't know if we want Ty Gibbs in this car. He's never been to these. He's never really driven a Cup car before. Let's just at least put Bubba to this number, and let's see how far we can get. Remember when he won, people were like, oh, he's not a playoff driver. But well, he kind of is.
Yeah.
That team went to the round of 12. So any spot, I keep going back, any time you move up a position, you're gaining a lot of money for that team. It means a lot. It holds more weight than what people give value for, but it's only because they haven't been educated on this actually means more. And like Kevin Harvick, a lot of people failed to realize when I said this a few weeks ago, that 100 points was massive for them. that fine and the points penalty they got because they're kind of stuck in last among the playoff teams. I think the last 3 years, Kevin Harvick finished the top non-playoff driver, so the 4 car was getting a bunch of money. Well, now they're kind of pinned to last. They're probably going to finish 16th out of 16 playoff teams in the owner's side, which means a lot less money. So
But this is big. Also one of the things that needs to.
It's got to get less confusing.
Yeah, everything has to change, including
if you're
that.
A casual fan, you probably like, did this dude just speak Spanish or French? Like, I don't understand a word he just said.
Yes.
But yeah, so we're going to have we're guaranteed 5 drivers going for a championship now at Phoenix because which kind of helps the show because we got another driver to put a wrinkle in the thing.
There you go.
NASCAR's worst, I think, nightmare would be Larson finish. Let's say Blaney gets the championship 4. Larson wins the race. Blaney finishes second. You have a driver's champion that did not even win a race all year, and the owners did not even
in his playoffs. Yeah.
Wouldn't that just completely boggle this whole thing up? That would be the worst case scenario NASCAR could have happen. But I think just when you think you've seen everything in the sport, something like that happens. So I wouldn't say never is never.
And just wrapping up fantasy, so no movement. Because Bowman's not coming back. So there's not going to be a Gibbs or Bowman switch for CJ. So because of that, I went ahead and decided, well, Gragson was just a one-race kind of deal anyway. Even though he dominated in the Xfinity car, not so much in the Cup car. So anyway, he was gone anyhow. But I just felt that, you know what, I don't know. Aric Almirola just seems to be just racing. He hasn't done anything. I don't care about his past because he has a pretty good past history at Martinsville, but he also did last week, and he didn't really prove much. So I decided to go with Keselowski and AJ. To me, AJ was the easy one, because they're hot. I mean, how do you? Let me take a look at this. Okay, I was going to say I just want to preface. Okay, because I don't know how CJ didn't put money on AJ.
Yeah, I mean he's for 30 to 1 or 40 to 1.
Yeah.
He's hot right now. He's a good track. And you dropped Noah, didn't you?
Yeah.
I've been waiting. I don't know. Busher, Noah's good at Homestead. Or I'm sorry.
Yeah, but he was good at Homestead.
Yeah.
And it didn't translate.
No, that's what I'm scared of because Busher's just been kind of consistently top 15, top 20 for me, which is what I've been needing. I just don't know, do I trust it or do I just leave it alone? And then I keep going back to, like you said, in the summer with Chase, and I didn't go with them, and like you avoided the hot hand. My team is above and beyond.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if I want to change anything.
I wouldn't.
That affects karma. Now all of a sudden my guys are all finishing.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to leave
I mean, you could take Wallace. That would be because I dropped Wallace a couple weeks ago, obviously, and I was thinking of bringing him back, but the short track thing, he's just not very good at. And so I figured, and then next week, I don't know. Let's see what happens, first of all, this week with the drivers that I put in there. But because, you get the feeling that Wallace, something could happen with Wallace. You don't know.
I would say if I'm a driver racing around him, I'm going to be extra aggressive around him because he can't do anything stupid.
Okay. Interesting.
So, because Hamlin said what we all thought. Like, look, people are like, oh, he shouldn't have been suspended, but even Hamlin's like, no, we dealt with this internally. That was a dumb move. That it's a short track. Knowing that, wouldn't you race him harder? Knowing that when you get down to 15th place, whatever, might mean more to Chris Buescher than it would to Bubba Wallace. So it's like, I'm gonna run him hard because he's not gonna pay me back.
Yeah.
He's not gonna be dumb enough to do this for a second time. So
what about Chastain?
I worry about him a little bit.
If Denny Hamlin gets knocked out of the playoffs, would he do anything in Phoenix if Chastain was in the playoffs?
I don't think he would. I only say that because he's always been the guy that I don't want to create any extra drama that if it happens to me, because if he does that, then next year's championship, or let's say Hamlin gets back, he's open for.
Yeah.
But I wonder this week if he needs that spot or two, and he's around him.
Oh yeah, I can imagine. Sure.
That's why I'm a little nervous with Chastain. Is he's got to race careful there's a lot of people that are wanting to cash in on some things with him that they're desperate for points that they would move. I think they'd move him and ask questions or apologize later. That's where I feel for him because he's kind of set that precedence, right? Like if you're Blaney, you maybe have had no past history with him, but you know how he races others. Like, well, he would do the same thing. I'm going to move him. So he better avoid guys needing points at the end. That's why I was a little nervous with him this week. Is I think he needs to get stage points and then get the hell out of the way.
Probably.
Get out of Dodge.
And really, as far as the points are concerned, so Briscoe needs a win.
Yes.
Bell probably needs a win, more than likely. Blaney, he would need a little bit of help. If he can get help early by one of those two drivers that he's chasing, more than likely it would have to be, you would think, Byron Hamlin.
Yeah.
That something happens to those two at any point, really. Early, the better. But if it doesn't, if you're into the third stage and everybody's driving and you're 12 points back, you better win the race if you're Blaney.
He's kind of in that, and he mentioned that, I think it's last night, he was on NASCAR radio, and he's in that no man's land. He's not far enough that he just needs to have a simple plan and go out and win, but he's not quite close enough to where he could point their way. I mean, he's realistically got a shot, but I look at it as I don't think we're going to see a lot of rough driving early because you don't want to mess your car up because you're going to need the stage points, which means it's going to come out of qualifying. And you look at, this is up right now on the website, I wrote this last night, that William Byron last week started on the pole. Denny Hamlin was 14th. William Byron scored 17 stage points. Denny Hamlin scored 1. Byron went from 6 points down to 5 points up. So it's really going to come down to, and you only got 130 laps to sprint. These two stages are 130 laps. You can get to the end on one pit stop, maybe not even any. Depends on how good you are on your tires and fuel. I don't think we're going to see a lot of cautions early. We typically don't there. So qualifying is going to mean a lot. And I looked at like Blaney's case. I'm referring to my phone down here because I got it on it. He's got one top 5 starting spot in his last 19 races on the season. Granted, he has started 2 of the last 3 have been row 3 or better. 5 of the last 6, row 7 or better. But for a guy 18 points out, you kind of need to get a top 3 finish in each stage. I don't know if he's going to be able to do that when one of the guys he's chasing is Byron. Byron's got 7 top 10 starting spots in his last 8 races of the year, 4 of the last 5 in the top 3. In his last 3 Martinsville tries, he's in the top 11, including 2 of which in the top 5.
No, it has to be Hamlin because of his issues in qualifying. And
Hamlin's the one that, he's. That's why I feel like Byron and Elliott are going to distance themselves because they're at the final 2 spots in on points. We know 2 guys are getting in on points. We know that to be a fact. But for Hamlin and Blaney, they could fall further down because of qualifying. That's why I look at where Blaney's kind of in that spot. He might be a must-win in the final stage. And Hamlin, 13 starting spots of row 6 or better in his last 14 at Martinsville, 8 of the last 10 in the top 3 rows. However, he qualified 25th in the spring, and 7 of his last 10 qualifying spots on the season have been 11th or worse. 6 of those 14th or worse. So you're talking, if you just go off these stats, let's say Byron is top 3 or 4 both stages, Hamlin 8th, 9th, 10th, probably. Hamlin's probably facing a double-digit deficit in that final stage too. So,
I mean, these stage points that they have here, is that for the playoffs?
I believe so.
So interesting that even though Blaney's had some qualifying issues, he's got the most stage points.
He finds his way. Oh, that's for the season. He's got the most stage points on the season. It's like 100 something.
No. It's only looking at the one that says 25.
Oh, okay.
That's got to be for the playoffs, right?
Yes. And you got to remember, in Vegas, he was top 3, I think, in both. And
why doesn't that seem like a lot for?
It's got to be this round. I bet it's this round because he was 4th, I believe, 3rd or 4th in the second stage at Homestead.
What does NASCAR say? NASCAR.com, because this is from Wikipedia and it just says stage points scored.
Yeah, that's got to be for the round.
What do you mean, the playoffs?
No, I bet he's got 25 this round.
Oh, you're talking about the round, the last 2 races.
Last 2 races, yeah.
That makes more sense.
That's got to be for because you got to think in Vegas he was in the top 3 or 4 in both stages, and then Homestead he was 4th, 3rd, something like that in the second stage.
All right. It's still that's interesting that he leads the points no matter what round it is, considering he hasn't qualified well.
Yep, he finds his way in the second stage of the front, which is why I'm curious if he finds himself in that position in the second stage. At what point do you like, you know what, these stage points aren't going to get me by anymore? These guys are Elliott and Byron and maybe even Ham. They're just too far to catch.
Well, but realistically, all right. So if Denny Hamlin qualifies poorly again.
Yep.
And Blaney qualifies, say, 10th. Yeah. And he goes fast and ends up 2nd. And Hamlin, 20th after the first stage or 16th at the first stage. And that means that he's going to gain 8 points on Hamlin?
Correct. But the problem is he's not going against Hamlin. He needs to get ahead of Hamlin, but he's got to catch Byron.
Oh, that's right, because of the other. Okay, so Byron. Yeah. Okay.
I think he's got 18 points, Byron does, on Blaney.
Yeah, 18.
That's a lot.
Plus, at least, but like you said, he's having a much easier time with qualifying.
So that's why I say if Byron qualifies top 5, let's just say he finishes top 5, Blaney finished in the top 5 doesn't really help him because they're kind of just, the gap stays the same. So Blaney's got to realistically qualify really well. He needs stage wins. He needs to be 1st or 2nd and have Byron several spots behind him to give himself a better chance.
And it gets into, well, yeah, but even Elliott dominated this race early on and didn't win. And you got to win the race. That's more important than the stage points. If you're
that's why if you get to the second stage and you're Blaney, you're like, I'm 4th, Byron's 5th. If I ride this out, it's not, it's fourth place stage points, but it's not going to help. I probably need to win. When do you just go off strategy? When do you like, okay, we just got to abort this plan and we're going to have to do something different, even with stage points in front of our face. We got to win. So I think that's where Blaney's saying, like, I'm in that weird position where I'd rather almost be in a must win. So I know my pack, I just got to go win.
Yeah.
So where Bell, and you look at Bell has 1 top 10 starting spot, 5 Martinsville tries, but that was 7th in the spring race. He's started in the top 8, or he's got 8 top 4 row starting spots in his last 9 weeks of the season. So that means he's in the top 8 of the last 9 races. He qualified 7th there in the spring. He could get himself a lot of stage points and also be in the running to win in the end. So he's got a shot. It's just that Toyota fixed their issues from the spring. Because remember, they were terrible in the spring race.
You know what they really could do to satisfy the old school fans that do not like this playoff shit show.
Mm-hmm.
We just talked about what they need to do to change up the owners' points. Well, why don't they just do it like that? Just say, all right, owners' points are just throughout the entire season.
Yep.
We do it completely different. We don't do it the way they're doing it. We're doing it the old way, where consistency trumps everything, blah, 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 blah. And then this way, and then you promote it that way.
Yeah.
Now you are marketing it that way.
Yeah, this is just points. This is a playoff.
Yes. So now if one driver's got 8 wins, even, I mean, in the old days, if you got 8 wins, you're gonna probably win and dominate. Nowadays, but if you don't have any wins during the certain playoff round, you could be kicked out 3 races.
Yeah, I mean, you look at something like Chastain. I don't think he's had a lot of stage points.
Not much, no.
He's finished 2nd the last 2 weeks, and he's only gained 13 points from where he entered by 2 second-place finishes, which should be a lot bigger than that, you'd think. So that's where stage points at this time of year are so big. They mean a lot, especially when you have somebody like Kyle Larson, who just won, taking on a driver's side.
Yeah.
He took a spot away, basically, or he opened the door because now you already knew one driver was getting the Phoenix on points. Now we know 2 are.
Yep.
So it makes a big game, and that's why I always say to people, like, well, Chastain should be good then. He's plus 18, plus 19. Like, not necessarily, because if Chastain needs to stay off that cut line, because let's just say he falls to 4th, and then Blaney wins.
Yeah.
He's out.
Yep.
So he's not safe by any means either.
Sure. Yeah. No, absolutely. Okay, so let's talk about the track because we mentioned it a little bit earlier. All right, so 103 short tracks. We've had Bristol 1 race, Richmond 2. And keep in mind, again, the temperatures were really cold. It was a night race earlier in April when they had this first. Only 5 lead changes. Elliott had 185 laps. Byron had 118. So they dominated that. And again, because it was cold, the tires were not an issue. So nobody knows. Nobody's going to know if tires are going to start becoming an issue on Sunday.
No, and I don't know if they gripped more because they said it'd be a cooler track. These cars, though, a lot of them have warned you're not going to see much difference. Yes, the tires could fall off a little more, but the temperature still, highs are going to be in the 60s. What happens if the race goes at night? Plus, it's the gear ratios, and they're shifting in the corners. So
didn't Denny Hamlin complain about that, the whole gear issue?
He's right, because if you think about it, in the past, if your car starts getting sideways, a little squirrely, and you just downshift real quick and get the momentum, and you can turn it, and then just shift back up on the straightaway. So if each car is doing that, how are you going to pass the car in front of you? Because the way these cars are set up, you're kind of all going the same speed, aren't you? Nobody's making mistakes. It's kind of hard to get to somebody when they're downshifting, and then you have to downshift. So by the time you get to do all that, how do you pass somebody? So that's kind of the situation that they're in. And I don't know. That's why I don't think tires necessarily, so they fall off.
How have the other short tracks been, like Richmond and Bristol, the last 2 of those races, regarding tires?
Boring.
Oh, not good.
Well, even Richmond, I should say, there's more room to pass, and there's more tire fall off. You're going slower in the corners. It's not shaped like Martinsville. That's why I don't want to use Richmond a whole lot because the tires fall off. Bristol, if you remember right, was the least amount of lead changes, I think, 2007.
Yep.
Because, again, you can shift. That's why Hamlin, and he was right, was like, let's just outlaw the shifting. We'll just make it simple. We can't shift.
That'd be
but
cool.
How can you tell somebody not to shift at the gear ratio? You've got to do it at the gearing, but that's the way this car is made. So therefore, wholesale changes you're not going to do right now. So that's why they kind of warned, are you truly going to see a different race?
Probably not. Like you said, qualifying matters. 12 of the last 14 winners started in the top 10 at Martinsville, including William Byron, who started 5th. So qualifying is definitely going to be an advantage. And yeah, I mean, especially if it's going to be a boring race and it's going to be hard to pass, you better be up front. That's going to have a lot. So, we are going to know a lot once we get to qualifying, what to expect. And if you don't qualify well, especially Denny Hamlin, if he has a bad qualifying day, then that could be the nail in the coffin. Even though he was there on Sunday, but he just didn't have the car. He just, every time he even got out in front a couple of times, he
stayed. Yeah.
He didn't
have it. Yep.
All right. So how many, I'm going to break it down. We all agreed that forget about long shots in this race. So we all agreed on that, which is bad. So maybe because of that part of it, we had just one driver.
Really?
That we all agreed upon. Just one.
Just one. Elliott's obvious. I feel like that's too obvious. It's not Elliott, is it? Is it Elliott?
No.
That's
my fault.
Trying to think here. Logano?
No. You were the only one that took Logano.
Trying to think.
Yeah, I did not want to not take Elliott, but it was one of those things where I'm going to not take a couple of drivers that I would normally take. I'm just going to gamble a little bit that, hey, this season's strange. So even a car that as dominant as Elliott's been on this track in recent history, I'm just going to bypass it and say, you know what? If Larson can miss the playoff round, maybe Elliott might have that bad luck.
Yeah. I'm trying to. Did I choose Chastain? Did I even choose Chastain? I don't even remember.
You did not. No, you were the only one that did not.
I didn't. I thought he'd get wrecked. That's why I didn't. I was like,
okay.
I'm gonna look at my. See, not Elliott, not Logano.
It really should be easy after what we've talked about already.
Keselowski?
No. Nope.
Who am I missing? I'm missing.
It's too
Blaney?
easy.
Is it Hamlin?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
It was. He was the second most obvious. I'm like, is it going to be that obvious? And it's not Elliott. Then okay.
Yeah, because I was back and forth on Elliott and Hamlin, and then like I said, I just, you know what? I picked Hamlin to win it, the whole thing, and I'm going to go ahead and do it. So because he may not even make it out of this round unless he wins. So I figured I'll just do it and go all in on Hamlin since I did pick him to win, and maybe he'll find out a way. And I have to disregard as bad as his car was in April because he had major issues all day and did nothing. And to tell you the truth, he's had 3 really bad finishes here in his last 5 races. One was a top 10. That was when he led 276 laps, finishing 3rd a couple of years ago. But he does have 5 wins. He has hit the top 5 in nearly 50% of his races at Martinsville. And that's why I forgave it, because I figured, look, something went wrong. I'm sure they'll fix it by now, especially when you take a look at the fact that in the other 3 short tracks, if you want to go that short track route, he won Richmond, 4th at Richmond, 9th at Bristol. So I'm sure they fixed it, whatever it was.
You'd hope, and I was the same way. I struggle. It's like there's so many reasons not to go with him. 7-1, I felt the second best. It's like it's kind of steep for a driver that 4 of his last 5 have been 11th or worse, and 28th in the spring. He's not qualified well. Toyota struggled there. It's like that was a lot, but nothing this season has really gone made sense. So I'm like, you're also getting a guy that has, on the flip side, has won 5 times and almost has led 2,000 laps there. The track didn't change, so.
He's hard not to go with because, like we just said last week, he finds a way, even if he doesn't qualify well, to all of a sudden you're in the 3rd stage and he's right there battling for the lead.
And I feel like they would do the same thing. And he keeps saying he's got this list of paybacks. And if he's going to be put in a situation, which I think he will be, I do think he's going to be in the final stage, needing to win or needing to move people. I think he will. He's been the center of controversy of this race. You got to remember the Chase Elliott incident in 2017, and Joey Logano and him on pit road, him and Bowman last year. This seems like this is a moment he always gets in, so it just seems right. That's why you couldn't punt on him this week.
Yeah, Elliott. Look, he's only won once in 14 races, but he's led 185 laps or more in 3 of his last 4 races. So,
and he would have won the spring if he didn't. I think it was either a slow pit stop or he was speeding. I can't remember which, but it took him out of the lead. The closest track to this you'd compare is probably New Hampshire. He finished 2nd there. He's going to qualify up front. He seems to always qualify in his last 4 starts, 8th, 5th, 2nd, 1st. So it's just maximizing his opportunity. And I just wonder how many guys are going to take themselves out and it's going to hand the win to him, because he doesn't need to get caught up in any controversy. If he just qualifies in the top 5 and just hangs out there all day, he's going to make it on points. Because, again, you said 2 drivers are going to make it there. But
so you would actually say New Hampshire is the closest to this track?
I'd say probably New Hampshire.
Okay.
Just because long straightaways, tight rounded corners. Granted, there's more space in New Hampshire in the corners than Martinsville, but they don't run up by the wall there anyways. So.
And then you got Byron, who you did not take at 9-1. I was originally not going to take him because I figured, well, sweeping the race is very hard to do, especially this season of all seasons. But look, 1st, 5th, and 4th on the season. 1st, 5th, and 4th in his last 3 at this track. One with dominating, leading 212 laps. And 3rd at Bristol, 3rd at Richmond. What was he at New Hampshire? He was just 11th, so nothing major. But look, he won this race, and he dominated, and he's 9-1, and he has to win, probably, maybe. So, yeah, I could not take him.
The only reason I didn't was I felt like I couldn't do 2 drivers the way I felt like Hamlin, because everything's saying with Byron, his stats recently there are good. Everything for 9-1, that's a bargain. And then you look at his last few finishes, 12th, 16th, 13th, and 12th. And I went and looked. Do you know how many out of the last 26 races, how many top 5 finishes he has?
Oh, Byron?
Yeah.
No.
1.
Yeah.
Like, is he really going to get a second and a win? He's a good fantasy play, I feel, this week. But I felt for 9-1, if I'm going to look at him and Hamlin and kind of put them in that same little back because they are fighting each other for that final spot, I'm going to go with the guy with 5 wins and 2,000 laps led over the guy with 1 top 5 in his last 26 races.
Yeah, I hear you. I mean, it's
Now, if he was like 12-1, 14-1, I'd jump all over him. But 9-1 right now. And plus, you got to look at, too, qualifying the way he qualifies. That number's going to probably drop. He might be 6-7-1 come race day.
And is he ready if he has to, pressure-wise? Will he be able to handle the moment? So
that's what I wonder, too. This is the first time he's really been in this situation. So
we've been waiting for him for the past year or two. Now it's all there waiting for him.
Yep.
You just dominated this race in April. It's right there. All you have to do is have a really good race. You don't even have to win it. Just have a really good race, really good finish. You're moving on. But if somebody chokes, it could be him.
Yeah, because you got to think the pressure. If Hendrick has won like 5 of the last 8 at Martinsville, and he's right now on the plus side of the cut line. He's on the final race, like you said. All you got to do is just get by. You're already there. Yeah. Don't punt it. Don't screw it up. Can he handle that?
We were all over the place with the 10-1 shots, Blaney, Logano, and Truex. I only took Blaney. You only took Logano. And CJ decided to take Blaney and Truex. So, for Blaney, he did finish 4th, and he was really top 5, 6 all night in April. Mm-hmm. So he was there all night, so that's good. He was okay on the short tracks. What was he in New Hampshire? 18th. So I don't know what happened there. 11th or better in 9 of his last 10 finishes at Martinsville. 6 top 5s in 13 races. So this has been a good track for him.
It is. And the only reason I didn't choose him is it's like, again, I put him in the Blaney and Hamlin, which, again, they're right there together, that for his odds right now, do I want to throw, again, because they're all grouped together, a guy that hasn't won in the last 44 races in a moment that he has to win. He's winless on the season. He's never won there. He's a phenomenal fantasy play because stats and trend show he's going to finish top 10, probably top 5. But can he break through?
Unless he breaks the car. Which could happen.
Or he's made 2 costly mistakes. His pit crew's been so wishy-washy. I just didn't feel where Logano on the phenomenal stats there. He's got nothing to lose. I feel like they're going to use this as a test session for Phoenix, which is the short track. You can translate over. I think they want to go in momentum. Like, hey, we won this one. This is our mic drop moment.
Well, shouldn't this also be, though, Logano and Cindric helping Blaney?
Yes and no. I just feel like there's not a whole lot you can do with the car at Martinsville compared to like a 1.5 mile track. I mean, it's a short track. There's only so much input you can put into it. It's just air pressures and stuff like that, which you can work on that in practice, and then Logano can go. Now, granted, if Logano's first and Blaney's second, I have a feeling.
Oh, yeah, that's different, yeah.
You get out of the way. But, yeah, I just, for the odds and for how good Logano's been there, and he doesn't need a win, I went that direction.
13 top 10s in his last 17 with 8 top 5s, a runner-up and a win for Joey Logano at Martinsville. Yeah, for me, I think Blaney is either going to be there in the top 5 with the chance to win late, or somehow something's going to go wrong with the car. He's gonna he's gonna over drive the tire. Something is gonna happen, and he's just like a few weeks ago when he was going well and something happened. All right, Truex. CJ took Truex, and I understand why. He's got 3 wins over his last 6 appearances, but didn't fare well. He had the issue earlier this year.
Yep.
But he's led 4. But he dominated in the 2019 win, leading 464 laps. Boy, wouldn't that be great to have another one of those races on Sunday? But Truex, it's like Kyle Busch at this point for me. I just don't know.
Yeah, Kyle, they got similar stats. They both are good at Martinsville, and you get a better number on Kyle. You just don't get the feeling that Truex is going to happen for a win. I mean, even last week. I mean, really, you almost missed the pit stall. I mean, he was right. He kind of blamed himself. Yes, Larson's not going to break on pit road. he choked. And you just look at all these situations this year. It's like in the round of 8 elimination races, Martin Truex Jr. for 10-1 is going to win a race. Too steep for me to. If anything, I'd go Blaney over him. But I just don't feel Joe Gibbs Racing needs Hamlin or Bell over Truex to win this race.
You did not take either Bell or Chastain. CJ took Chastain. I took both. And for Bell, it was he found a way at a road course. So if he can find a way to road course, plus he's been really good on the short tracks this year.
Yep.
Except this race, this track, he didn't have a really good car after an early start. But by the way, he won New Hampshire.
Yeah, exactly. He was the final at 43.
I just figured I'm going to play him. I'm not high on him, but I'm enough where if he does it, I want to have at least to get my money back.
Yeah, I went more towards the one more. Do I think he's going to win? No. But he's going to have a good shot. Like I said about his qualifying effort, he should be up front. Toyota used to be really good there. Did they fix what they were missing? And for Chastain, he's been running so good. He's in so good in points right now. It's a bargain. But do you think he's going to win? No, I don't think so. He's not the guy. I feel like, because let's be honest, right? I think the winner is going to have to move somebody to win this race. He doesn't need another conflict. He doesn't need. I worry about him getting moved by somebody needing points the other way around.
Yep.
So that's why I'm like, I don't know if he's going to see the finish. He needs to get as many stage points, and if Hamlin's behind him, I think he just let him go.
Yeah, Hamlin won't think twice. No.
If any playoff, if he's good in the points going to the final stage, if there's a playoff guy needing points behind you, let him go. Just let him go. Just get out of the way, which in turn means he's probably not going to win. So that's why I couldn't go his direction.
And his fifth place finish was not really indicative. He was like outside the top 10 the entire night, and he just somehow finished fifth late. So Larson, by the way, is also 12-1. He's got 2 top 10s in his last 4 at Martinsville. Before that, no top 10s in his previous 11th, and he's 19th this year. So he's not winning 2 straight.
No, I don't know why his odds are the way they were. He should, granted, he'd probably come off a win, but he should probably be more like 20-1.
By the way, I think they knew something around the track after qualifying and practice. Not that it said anything big for Larson after qualifying and practice, but they must have known something around the track because on race day he was the favorite.
Oh yeah, and he just.
So they must have known something. Somebody must have watched that, and then all of a sudden he's the favorite. Because when I saw that he was the favorite, I was like, "What the hell is he doing the favorite? He only qualified 5th. He's practiced outside the top 10. He's not a playoff driver. He hasn't done anything really lately. Why is he the favorite? They must know something."
Yeah, I think they knew that he could run the wall, and that car isn't going to get it. That goes to show you next year that he needs to get to this round and watch it. I don't know how you stop it. That's an art to run where you see the onboard video they showed of how close he was. I'm like, how do you hit the ball? It's crazy. You can't beat that. If he could get a car like that, which you've already got notes, it's like, I don't know how you stop it.
You took Kyle.
Yeah, I thought
Busch and Harvick are 15-1. Good bargains, but Kyle doesn't have led a lap in his last 3 at Martinsville, and Harvick, no top 5s last 8, no laps led last 12.
Yeah, I don't know why he's way up.
He's been 30-1 the last now he's 15-1.
Yeah, it's 2 top 5s his last 20 there. It just did not make sense. This is the place that he said was his kryptonite, which has kept him from Phoenix all these last few years. Why would he magically win this year? It just didn't make any sense. So, yeah, Kyle, do I think he's going to win? No. He's got good stats. He wants to go out with a win. He could be up front. I mean, he was up front last year. So.
I definitely trust Kyle over Harvick.
Yeah, for 15-1, he was a better bargain than that.
You guys both put a little bit of money on Briscoe. Why?
Only because he was 9th in the spring, and he needs a win, and you're getting him for good odds.
Okay, 20-1. Reddick is 25-1. He's been terrible on the short tracks this year.
Yeah, that's where I feel like Harvick should be, right around there with him. But, yeah, not touching that one.
AJ and Keselowski. So you and I put money on Keselowski. I actually put $30 on Keselowski. That's how confident I am that he's going to finish well. And why not? AJ, in his last 3 races in a row, third, ninth, and fourth. In his last 6 overall, third, ninth, fourth, seventh, second, and seventh. And I'm getting him for 30 to 1?
Yeah.
On a short track.
6 straight top 10s for a driver that's a part-time driver. And the Xfinity, he was third in the spring and 7th last year. He's third I think the Xfinity, 2 of his last 3 finishes are the top 3 there too. So yeah, 30 to 1. He was good in the Cup race at Martinsville. He was runner-up in 2016, 6th in 2017, 8th in 2018. So definitely.
Did they not have like races at Martinsville at some point in the Xfinity series?
Yeah, they went years without racing. They only brought it back because of COVID, and they just kept it.
Kozlowski 30 to 1, and I figured, all right, I got Kozlowski on my fantasy team. I just didn't have enough to put him on my list, but he does have 3 top 10s. Get this, he had 3 top 10s before the playoffs. He has 3 top 10s during the playoffs, including 5th last week.
He's starting to give you reason and optimism for this RFK team for next year. I mean, him and Busch are running well. Remember, Buescher won Bristol. That's his teammate. He should have won Bristol. His tire cut down.
Yeah.
This is arguably one of his better tracks. He had a top 5 last weekend. And then if you look at his fall race finishes at Martinsville since 2016, 2nd, 4th, 5th, 3rd, and 4th. 4th and 3rd again. Top 6 every time. You get him for 30 to 1. That, to me, is another bargain.
Yeah, now I did put money on Dillon. I figured, why not? He finished a strong 3rd. He was up there all night in April. And in his last 3 races, 4th, 10th, and 10th.
Top 5 last weekend, too, out of him. So.
And keep in mind, Bubba Wallace did finish 3rd in New Hampshire.
He did.
He's 40 to 1. Just like Almirola and Buescher.
2 wins in the Truck Series there. 3 of his 4 top 5s and 5 Truck Series starts. So.
Okay.
But, again, you have to be aggressive to win this race. I just wonder how aggressive he's going to be. I don't think it'd look good if he moves somebody for the one.
Yeah, but one thing. I don't know. I mean, he's got a little bit of, he's got that shield, from criticism that he might just be already been taking advantage of it, which I think is possible. So who knows if he'll keep taking advantage of it until he figures, let me screw around with this shield I have a little bit more and see how far I could go.
Yeah, he could.
Until someone has the nerve to criticize me.
It's funny how the media acted last week and not more social media. A lot of media was on the right, like, oh, he should be punished, and people, oh, well, what about it? When you got literally the team was like, NASCAR was wrong. He was in the wrong. NASCAR was right to penalize him. We internally had. So it's like even they said there was a problem. So nobody else is making this about race, and some people because even Bubba admitted, like, yeah, I probably shouldn't have done that. Everybody knows that. And that's where I feel like just top 10 for him would be a good day.
And then all the other long shots have just no good history. I mean, maybe Custer at 100 to 1 because he had a good run going until the issues late. He could have been a top 10 in April. And Cindric is a good short track racer, and he's 11, and he finished 11th this year at 50 to 1. So maybe those guys, but even Jones is not good in this spot.
No.
Nobody, none of the long shots, McDowell and Haley and Stenhouse, none of them have any sort of resumes at this track.
No, and there's a reason the big teams win this track, right? Because I said it's not a high horsepower track. Not a lot of downforce you're going to have to mess with. You can gear shift if you need to get your car centered right. So, yeah, not really. The big team should shine here, especially on the spot on the schedule. So that's why you probably want to side with more of the favorites or your top sleepers at 30 to 1 or better, and that's about it.
Top 3?
Ooh, I'm going to say Elliott. I went all in on him. Elliott, Hamlin. I think we'll get back up there. Blaney. I think Blaney's going to be up there. I don't think he'll win, but I think we'll be in the top 3. I think it's going to be real interesting. I just don't feel like he's going to get enough to get the win, but I do feel like he'll be up there.
Yeah, I'm a little bit, I don't know. I mean, I think they get a little carried away with the championship odds. I mean, for Blaney, for Christopher Bell to be 100 to 1 and Blaney to be 40 to 1, I mean, I don't think it's all right. I like Bell. So what you're saying, he's 12-1 to win the race, but he's 100-1 to win the championship. I mean, if he wins the race, he has a 25% chance to win the championship. So this doesn't compute with me.
It's almost malpractice because next week he's going to be 6-1 or better. You're going to go from 100-1 to 6-1. That's what they're basically?
Yeah.
Because you're going to. I guarantee the 4 championship 4 guys
who'll be
6-1 or 6-1, or maybe 5-1.
5-1.
They're not going to be, because it kind of seemed like the contenders of each round have hovered around there. Far worst case 8-1, but I don't think you put all 4 8-1. I think you just put them all 5-1 or 6-1. They're all going to be the same.
I don't know. That's why that's why I decided. You know what? Why not put $100 on them to make 10,000 on 1 week?
Because it carries over to next year.
It's $100.
Yeah.
What do I care?
So, $100 that way. Yeah.
And we'll go over the futures too next week because we'll have only 4 drivers. Well, we'll see how many drivers we have left in our futures tank.
Yeah.
Because I might not only. Well, yeah. That's why the one smart thing I did was even though it was late, I started late on Logano, and now I've gotten close. I'm only 5,000 away from breaking even with Logano after I didn't even take him for like the first 30 weeks of the season.
Yeah, so, I don't have it. What was mine? I think I got a nice win on him.
Right now, if you would win, you would. Keeping in mind your investment's 38,000.
Yeah,
but you would make close to 10 grand.
That's
but
what I thought.
His ticket is 47,000.
Yeah. I've been on him all year. Like it's 22 or was it 22 and 22 or whatever their motto is, and 2 and 22. That's what it was.
I got to tell you right now, I was looking at it. I was going over and I'm going, you know what? I would probably pick him right now.
I would too.
Because there's so much uncertainty that he just seems like, I could now see Logano winning. Because there's not that, Elliott's going really hard and he's looking great and Kyle Larson's looking really great. None of those, there's not any of those drivers right now. There's Chastain. There's maybe going to be Byron in there. It's like, come on. I mean, you got Logano here as former champ, or maybe even if Hamlin makes it, he's never won it before. He always seems to choke. So why not Logano?
Got a guy that's been there, done that. I mean, this is his 5th time. So, you just get the sense that it just feels like the stars are lining up for him. Especially it's not like Phoenix is because you got to look at that point as just Phoenix. He hasn't been terrible there lately. Last year, he just kind of stayed out of the way in the playoff race. But, in fact, I've got it right here. Logano in Phoenix was his last 5, 1st, 3rd, 2nd, 11th, 8th. So, you got to think that's pretty good to go off of. And for an all bets, anything's off. I mean, do you really think Elliott's going to win? He's never won at Phoenix before other than his championship. And he doesn't give you any reason to think he's going to win there all of a sudden. Like you said, he's not hot right now.
No.
Larson last year was entering there as him and Hamlin were dominating the playoffs.
Nobody's hot if you look at it still. No. Let's keep in mind that
Chastain's the only one.
Out of the 8 playoff drivers, only 3 wins from all 8 in the 8 races. 3!
And the last week, only 2 of them finished in the top 10. They said that's the least amount ever. And you got to think, you got championship 4s where there's only 4 drivers left. They've never had that. Granted, they usually run 1, 2, 3, 4, but 2. Nobody's got. Chastain's the only one with momentum, but it's like, do you really think he's going to win the championship?
That'd be crazy.
There, but it's like, it's just hard to fathom.
I know. It is.
When you got somebody like Logano sitting there. So, yeah.
It is. It's going to be crazy. If you first he's got to get there and not choke or not get wrecked. And we'll find out on Sunday. Again, everything, you can find out everything, including all the stories that Eric's already been working on at racereviewonline.net. So check that out. Next Tuesday, and that's what we're thinking about right now. If it's not Tuesday, it's definitely Wednesday, but we're still aiming for Tuesday for our Championship 4 preview show. CJ will be back. So the 3 of us will do it maybe one more time, because next week we'll talk about whether or not CJ will come back for our final race, a final show, which will be a couple of days after the race. So we'll do a post-season show as well. And I think CJ will return for that. So anyway, Eric, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Enjoy the race on Sunday, I hope.
Yeah, fingers crossed.